Hello and welcome to Faith Matters. If you have been following the news and keeping abreast with whatever is happening in our country over the past couple of months, I know what you're going through. You're probably terrified, feeling depressed, anxious, not knowing what this country holds in the future, where this country is heading towards. A lot of chaos, a lot of confusion. Where do we stand? And it's quite natural that people like us, people like you and me, people of faith are the ones that are most affected because there's so many questions that seem to come up to our mind we can't find answers from. Where do we go? Who do we ask these questions from? How do we make sense of what's going on in our country? Our religions are under question. Our faith is being talked about. Our fundamentals are being questioned. What do we do? Well, here at Faith Matters, we decided that that's it. We're going to ask some serious questions and get some answers from those people who will help us find those answers. And obviously, whenever there's evil forces out there trying to create chaos and mischief in the land, there are always those good people, people of God, who are out there in trying to calm situations down, help societies understand and make sense of things that are going on. So as people of faith, it is up to us to make sense of what's going on, find answers. And for that, here on Faith Matters, it is my pleasure to have invited on the show, to begin with, representing the Christian community, Father Dushantha Rodrigo, Reverend Dushantha Rodrigo. Now, Father is a parish priest at St. Paul's Church, Kinsey Road, is that right? And also the principal of St. Thomas's Prep School. So brings with him a load of experience in dealing with youth and people in general. And obviously representing the Muslim community, very familiar face to those of us who are Muslims, Sheikh Muiz Bukhary, international renowned speaker, travels around the world delivering wonderful sermons, founder of Sakina Institute, which is an educational Islamic institute. And of course, he delivers sermons around the country in Sri Lanka in different mosques around the country. So welcome, gentlemen, to the show. And first of all, thank you so much for being here. Father, I'd like to start with you because what we've seen over the last couple of months, especially after the Easter attacks, I mean, it's no secret there was a horrendous situation in our country and things were really getting out of control. But your Christian community, our brethren from that community reacted beautifully, especially from the Archbishop's office to the Christian followers. They showed us that with love and with tolerance and with understanding, we can overcome such situations. What is the sentiment right now? What are the kind of messages that are going around in your community? How are you talking to your community, to the youngsters, and what are you telling them as to how do we go on from this? How do we look further, look beyond?
It certainly has not been an easy time. And it will take a long time for people to work this out in their minds. Mm-hmm. And every day is a new challenge.
Absolutely.
Because every day people are coming up with new interpretations, a new understanding. The Christian community is part of this country and thinks like the rest of this country. The only difference is that Christians are made up of different ethnic groups.
That's true.
So you have the Sinhalese who are Christian, you have Tamils who are Christian, you have Burghers who are Christian. You also have some Malays who are Christian. And you may be having a good mix of some others who are also Christian. So that Christians throughout this country have lived and tried to contribute in no small measure to bring harmony within the larger fabric of Sri Lanka. So when this happened, just like the entire country was in shock, even Christians were in shock. But everybody needed to respond.
Absolutely.
And so we look to the scriptures, we look to our traditions, we look to the teachings of the clergy. And we found that we had the strength and the courage to respond in a way that we minimized the tension and among the communities. One is that we are not isolated.
Absolutely.
So we are everywhere, though small. And on that Easter day, it is a practice that families worship together. So some families were badly affected.
Yes.
Because some of them lost their lives. And some had a number of people injured. Now, within the community itself, there is a way of responding to pain, to suffering. And in this country where we have gone through more than 30 years of war, and Christians have been also victims, we have never looked at it like that.
That's true.
We have looked at it as the struggle of everyone, the common people. So that we never thought that it was we who were affected.
That's true.
In that sense. So we thought that here's a national problem again. And there's only one way that we can rise above it, and that is to think nationally.
Absolutely.
So there was no thinking at all that the Christians must be incited to do various things. Because there's never been a thought like that.
Absolutely.
We have gone through different experiences and have always preached, taught, and acted in a way that we build bridges of friendship and harmony. So that's what we are at the moment. Not that everything is the way we want it to be.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because our people also are part of this country. They think like other people do. There are people who think very nationally. There are people who can get into a ghetto mentality and be also reactive in some sense. But we have a balance.
Absolutely.
So we have a good balance because people would try to address it quickly and to bring it under control.
Which is great. I mean, that's what you get, Father, when you have a united community, isn't it? You know who is saying what at the right time. And Father, just excuse me for a second because you used the word balance there. And I want to start with Sheikh Muiz Bukhary with that word because Sheikh, correct me if I'm wrong, but that word balance is something that's missing from our community. I'm not here to denounce our community saying we are not united, but I think you must have got a lot of questions after what has happened with regards to youth going into extremism. I mean, what happened was obviously as a result of extremism. We don't know if they were really driven by religion or if it was some other political move or what it was. But there is a need to discuss these things in our community, isn't it? I mean, people are taking their religion from not people they know, but rather, sources online or people they've never heard of. So is there something that we can learn from our Christian brethren, striking that balance and being more united in our communities?
I start off by greeting the viewers with the greetings of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace be unto you all. And then I greet Father Dushantha. May peace be with you, Father. It's an honor to be on this platform with you. I thank you, Samir, for having me on the show. The Father shared some beautiful reflections in terms of how their community responded. And yes, of course, what I firmly believe is every experience in life is a school. It teaches you many lessons. And when you look at how the Christian community responded, their leaders, the religious leaders, how they guided them, it was extremely beautiful. And in terms of your question, Samir, about balance, what I honestly feel is that you mentioned that perhaps some of our sources were gaining knowledge from the internet and from perhaps unverified sources. Before all of that, I think it's important to touch on the pivotal role that humanity plays even before religiosity. When you talk about religion, when you talk about faith per se, faith is something that is pure, like milk, if you will. If you take the example of milk in a vessel, you have faith as being the milk. But the adopting of it, that is defined as religiosity. When the vessel is soiled, and that's humanity, when the vessel is soiled, or if there's a crack in the vessel, then the adoption, the religiosity is also at times, I would say, not to the standards that we would expect. And that's why you would see people who claim to be people of faith, but then, harboring jealousy in their hearts, harboring anger in their hearts. There's this sense of crookedness, mainly because humanity, that spirit of humanity hasn't been lit up in their hearts. And that's where the balance needs to come in, where we work on humanity. We work on today, last Friday, I spoke about my sermon. Father, was titled Equilibrium. So I was touching on this state of balance, basically, to be able to be individuals who treat everything around us, every single creature of God, with respect, with love. Today, unfortunately, due to materialism, due to industrialization, due to global economization and all of this, we seem to have drifted away from that, where we don't even greet the person next to us. We scowl at them, we don't even smile at them. And this results in us being alienated. So we have alienated ourselves, and then within ourselves, I think the Father would agree, we have factions. So we have splintered, and this sense of intolerance. So it's about striking a balance, yes, that's the key word, in almost every aspect of our lives. To be a balanced individual in terms of health, in terms of emotional health, in terms of spirituality, religious thinking, in terms of being an individual. When you look at it at a larger level, to be a balanced individual, not going to either one of the two extremes of the spectrum. Now, when you take religiosity, you have two extremes. One is when you let go of faith entirely. You don't even want to identify yourself as a person of faith because you feel that it carries too much of baggage in today's context. So you want to distance yourself as much as possible, regardless of whichever faith we come from, be it the Abrahamic faiths or even the ones outside of it. And the other extreme is when you become a zealot. Not a sellout, a zealot. Where you become very zealous in your thinking. Overzealous, extremely zealous. And then that's when you end up misinterpreting, I would say, the scriptures and going overboard with how you carry yourself with others. So it's all about striking that healthy balance. And honestly, when you take faith, God in the Quran, Father, He describes faith as being a tree that has its roots firmly rooted in the ground and its branches towering up to the heavens, constantly giving fruit, constantly giving shade. So faith, if you look at that metaphor, if you look at that example, faith is something that needs to take deep root in our hearts, and it needs to make us individuals where we become productive individuals to society, to humanity at large. Unfortunately, today, the way it's being looked at, and again, it's because of the whole discussion being polarized, the more devout you are, the more a threat you are towards society, which should not be the case, because the teachings, the scriptures tell us the more devout you are, the more productive and
more beneficial you are to society.
To society at large. So that's the balance, I would say.
That's amazing, because you spoke of the spectrum of the two balances. Father, this is something I was going to come to, because you spoke of materialism, he spoke of materialism. Let's keep aside the Sri Lankan context. Religion as a whole in this 21st century has come to a point where people are starting to mock. Being a person of faith means being a person who believes in the unseen. But now with this whole concept of freedom and materialism, instant gratification, you're not someone who wants to be bound by rules and regulations, not someone who wants to be given disciplinary action, saying if you do this is not good, if you do this is not good. You teach in the school, you're a principal of a primary school. I'm sure a lot of kids come up to you and ask you these questions, don't they? Because there's one aspect of religion where it's rational thinking, but okay, God exists, There is this belief in the unseen, supernatural things that we believe in. You need to instill that in them. And then you also need to plant the seed of conviction in their hearts, which is faith in itself, belief in the unseen. How do you manage to strike that balance in this era when there's so many questions being asked of religions, Father?
One of the ways that we have responded to this is that we have a beautiful word called Incarnation. And that is to get into the lives of people.
Right.
If we want to manifest what we believe in, we have been given a community,
Right.
or communities. And we are never stuck in one particular community. We move from one to another. And within the day, sometimes we are in diverse communities.
That's true.
And religion, therefore, is something we bear with us, we carry with us, and the tenets of that faith we can incarnate in the lives of people.
Right.
So whether it be in a school, and there are times when children come and ask the most difficult questions, to which there are no easy answers, and for which they are also grappling with.
Right.
It's part of their experience. They are also trying to relate to something that has been handed down to them.
That's true.
And they want to know exactly whether this is something that they also need to deal with. And so we have to come to the level of where the person is. Otherwise, this religion will be something up in the air and not real to people.
That's true.
So, religion has meaning. Faith is the vehicle. And therefore, we need to be sensitive first to know where our people are.
That's true.
If we take our people for granted, then I think we will, as they say, scratch where it does not itch. So we need to be conscious of that. And then decide what we are going to do in the community.
So sort of empathize, put yourself in their shoes, see why they're asking the questions that they're asking in the first place. Is that the correct understanding?
Well, empathy goes without saying, but for us, we need to understand that people are at different places on this road.
Right, right.
And we can't make them move at our pace.
Absolutely.
But we need to move towards people and journey with them. Now that's an exercise that I think people of all faith need to be doing. Otherwise we'll be leaving some people behind.
That's such a beautiful anecdote, isn't it, Sheikh? I mean, with Sakina Institute, your institute that, it's an Islamic institute where you teach young boys and girls. I'm sure this is one of the common issues. People come into you and asking questions that you have sometimes, to be very honest, are difficult to answer. So is it something similar that you adopt?
I think Father had a valid point when he mentioned that people are different places in the journey. And yes, there are different levels of understanding. And you said empathy. I was telling the youngsters, I was teaching a class, and I was telling them that even during the aftermath, it's important to empathize because you had a few individuals who exploited, I would say, the name of Islam. They had Muslim names, yes, but we disclaim ourselves entirely from them.
And their ideology.
Yeah, definitely. We had youngsters very confused, wondering, where are they coming from and why are they twisting the scripture like this? Or why are they even quoting and citing the scripture for the horrendous crimes that they have, perpetrated, 300 plus lives, you see? So, and then you see then the aftermath with the narratives. Where you had, I mean, at the end of the day, people with different types of agendas going around trying to get their agendas fulfilled.
Make use of their situation.
Yeah, taking advantage of the opportunity, driving in wedges wherever they could drive in wedges. So you had the youngsters very confused. And they wanted clarifications. They wanted to know, okay, why are certain people behaving like this during the aftermath? So I made them understand that, you see, you have certain individuals who carry the racist card with them, and they are blatant racists even before the attacks. But if you look at the bulk, the majority of the people after the attacks, it was mainly because of the narratives that they were being spoon-fed. It was the fear psychosis that settled in. So my point being, empathy. We need to put ourselves in their shoes, and that's what the Prophet constantly taught us to do. He was an empath, a proper empath. So we need to put ourselves in their shoes to try and understand where they're coming from. After having witnessed whatever the media outlets portrayed, and seeing all of the carnage, and seeing the names being plastered left, right, and center, there's this fear psychosis. And you can't, see, not everybody is exposed to different types of narratives. Today, for example, when you go on Twitter, you get a variety of narratives that you are exposed to. But if you stick to just one media outlet, and if that media outlet, for example, is biased towards a particular narrative, then that's what you're going to be fed with. So a lot of the people, actually, I would say, they've been fed with this narrative, and that's why this psychosis settled in. So it's important to educate the youth, and I would say us as leaders, we are shepherds of our flocks. So the flocks, at this time, during chaos, it's important to strive for order, to bring in some understanding. And I think initiatives of this nature, you see, these conversations, they are beautiful, Father, because the conversation between a Muslim and a Christian is beautiful and unique, because we share this natural affinity, this love towards Jesus, peace be upon him.
And we're all from the Abrahamic faith, the monotheistic religion, isn't it?
Exactly. So we need more of this. We need to lead by example and guide the people with us to show that, you know what, we have this. We need to bring in this sense of tolerance, to be able to understand where one another, where they're coming from, to dismantle these issues, because we as spiritual people, we believe that the devil is causing mayhem as well. He's using this as a magnificent opportunity, a window to cause as much chaos, bloodshed, violence and whatnot. So we need to strive hard. I think our roles are amplified now in terms of what we need to do towards our community at this point in time.
And that's an amazing point, because it helps my conversation flow, Father, because this was going to be my next point. Because a lot of conflict happens, a lot of issues between communities happen because we haven't sort of understood each other. Like Sheikh said, we need to have more open conversations, more honest conversations. People always want to highlight differences between our religions. But how many people talk about the commonalities? There's so much, like Sheikh was mentioning, there's so much in common. You know, I worked at a private news outlet, and when I graduated from school, I had no clue about Buddhism, because in our international schools, it wasn't taught as a religion. But there were some things that I learned, which I would say the words of the Lord Buddha were exact similar to the words of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And I was shocked. I said, listen, you know, this is what religion is all about. No religion wants to teach you to discard another. They're all similar teachings. For example, there was something about respecting your parents to a certain extent, and we know the Christian and the Muslim teaching about how far you need to go when it comes to respecting and showing kindness to parents. Father, I think clergy like yourself, Sheikh, and obviously many others, there's a need for us to work together to sort of have these open conversations with our communities as well. What are your suggestions? How do we go about this?
This is something that we have always inculcated. When a priest is appointed to a church, just to give you the background, we are transferred every 4 years or so.
Right.
And one of the things that the bishop tells us is visit the temple,
Right. The area temple. Right. Yeah.
visit the mosque, visit the Kovil, visit all other Christian house of worship and the priests there. And you need to meet them on a regular basis. One of the other things is that when you people see you walking into the temple, when your people see you walking into the mosque, that will also help your people to take that first step to cross the road.
Lead by example.
So that is expected of us.
Absolutely. Yes.
And wherever possible, when there is an interfaith prayer somewhere in some organization or in the community, we make it a point to be there. Because it's important for the community to know that we can say our different prayers, but at least we are seated in the same place together.
Absolutely. We're all worshipping God together in the same place.
Of course. And that gives us an opportunity to speak, to tell people that don't treat other people with anathema. And the other thing is that we hear the music, the prayers, the bell, the sounding of the bell, and the sounding of the minaret, and the banner and the gatha and all that.
The call to prayer.
Yeah.
Comes to Muslim worship. Yeah.
And actually, we have now memorized it. When I was in the theological colleges preparing training for ministry in the seminary, we had to do a service that is evaluated.
Right.
So usually we ring the bell to call the people.
Right.
You will see the church bells always ringing.
Yes.
So I told my friend who was from the East, I told him, I want you to sound like the call to prayer from the mosque to the entire community that is there.
Okay. Right.
So the lecturer, so once you you ring the bell, then the people come.
Mm-hmm.
So the lecturer who came for the evaluation said, I was wondering where there was a mosque this morning. So for me, it was important to connect that with what I was doing.
Absolutely.
To me, it was not foreign, it was not alien, it was not somebody else's thing, but I made it my own.
Right.
So, because of the associations that we have had, and I think that's the important thing. In our communities, we need to know who our neighbor is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Otherwise, we will lose. We have to be the poorer. But if we know we have been able to reach out, we have played together, then we become the richer. And in situations like this, we don't curl up, we don't not get into ourselves, but we are able to reach out and to understand the other for who the other is. And that's important.
Despite what their beliefs are.
Of course.
Sheikh, your closing remarks along with that thought?
So as closing remarks, I would say that in the past, if you look at a people of faith, a certain faith, they would be to an extent isolated by themselves due to the fact that we didn't have really fast modes of communication like how we do today, WhatsApp and all of the social media platforms.
Different, I guess.
Yeah, and now today, with all of what's happening, the world in its entirety is considered a global village. So yeah, the other day I was actually reading an article by the Dalai Lama, if I'm not mistaken. He had said that today, because we're looking at harmony and harmonizing the different types of religions and faiths that are out there. If you look at any mainstream religion, no religion condones violence, no religion wants to breed extremism, terrorism. Like you said, the facets or the tenets are more or less very similar. Take the 5 precepts of Buddhism, for example. It talks about very, very common things, basically that you're not supposed to harm any life, you're not supposed to steal, you're not supposed to consume intoxicants, and so on and so forth. So coming back to my initial point, now today, because of the world becoming a global village, we have become this multi-ethnic, multi-religious, single entity. And we are exposed to different cultures. We move with people. When you are in a country or a place where you are exposed, like a good example would be the UK. You have a variety of cultures that come there. You see the people being very broad-minded there. Even a mosque. I've been to so many mosques. I've been invited to deliver the sermons. I see people from India, Pakistan, Bengalis, so many people coming in, and there's this variety, diversity of cultures. That brings in this sense of tolerance, being broad-minded, open to the cultures of others, accepting. So these beautiful traits fall into place, and that's one of the reasons I emphasized on humanity. These traits that are connected to humanity initially come in, like empathy, like being tolerant of the views of others, to respect the opinions of others, where we agree to disagree.
Yes.
You can't force or impose your belief system on another individual, but we definitely can bring in respect towards the other individual's belief system. So I feel this is something that we have to work on through our sermons, through our preaching, through our classes, leading by example, like the father said. That was a beautiful point where the priest asked to actually go into different mosques and places of worship. I think that paints this picture where people look, like for example, think of it, if an imam and a father were to be seen constantly in that beautiful bond of friendship. Just imagine what a profound impact it would have on their two communities. And for that matter, to be able to see these interfaith platforms and forums taking place, it brings in, for the common people, for the masses, it brings in a lot of understanding. So I think it falls onto our shoulders in a big way in that sense. Yes, we have a lot to do.
Absolutely. In fact, what you just said, that whole bond of friendship between imams and pastors and priests, maybe this show could be a starting point for it here on Faith Matters. So love, respect, mutual understanding, getting to know the other person's religion, reaching out to your neighbors, like the father said, getting to know people, really put yourself in their shoes and find out where they're coming from. And I'll tell you what, like the father and the Sheikh said, there will be so much more peace and so much more love that will prevail among us. Thank you, gentlemen, once again for taking your time out, your busy schedules. It's been a pleasure talking to you all.
Thank you very much.
There you go then. That's that from the Faith Matters episode. We will see you again next week, or probably any time that we can, with another wonderful guest. Until then, it's Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you, all of you.